of the world, top of the, pop the lid off. Oh, oh, you put your money where your mouth is, tell it like it is.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Wonder Women podcast, the main podcast for the business magazine for women.com. I know that some of you like to take us with you when you go work out or when you fly. Hope your workout or flight is going great. In our podcast, just like in our magazine, we're focused on promoting women's voices in business, technology, STEM, politics, sports, arts, and culture. My name is Monica Antohi. I'm the founder of the business magazine for women.com and the host of today's podcast. Before we get you to today's conversation and before I introduce you to our awesome guest, the most awesome and wonderful woman of today, I'd like to take a moment and take care of some administrative things. As you know, the podcast is now available on YouTube as a video and SoundCloud and iTunes as an audio podcast. That's how you found us. If you like what you're seeing today and what you're hearing, we would love for you to become our Patreon supporter. Basically, for the price of a coffee cup or more, you'll get cool perks like getting your name mentioned in the next podcast recording, or a handwritten card from us, or you'll get the current issue of our most awesome, the Business Magazine for Women, delivered directly into your inbox. Basically, your support will give us the resources we need to continue bringing you these interviews with these amazing women, the Wonder Women of every industry. To become a Patreon supporter, you can find us at Patreon, spelled patreon.com/Wonder Women Podcast. That's patreon.com/Wonder Women Podcast. The music for our podcast is graciously provided by our most awesome Wonder Woman, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. To get your free download, go to cbemusic.com. That is cbemusic.com. Now, let's get you to today's conversation. Today, we're talking to Dr. Larsen, Dr. Penny Larsen. I don't even know where to start. That's how impressive your resume is. But let's say that you're with womenmanage. Let's just start there. So good morning, Dr. Larsen. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Yeah. So you want to start talking about women's manage? Did I hear that correctly?
Wherever you want to start. We would like to know a little bit more about you
honestly,
and women's manage.
We can do that. I would like to start with my earlier years so you can kind of see where I'm coming from.
Fantastic.
If I could do that.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm from the world of education. Started off many years ago as a classroom teacher and over time worked up into administration. I have since retired from that field, quote unquote, right?
Yes.
But over that journey, and I do look at life as a journey. So over that time, I learned a lot about myself and my students, and I discovered that I really enjoy working with marginalized populations and underserved. Now, in the public schools, that typically means students and their families. And so I found out that I was able to work with those students much better than many of my peers. So I would always get an overload in the classroom, right, of all these kids with all the baggage. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I'll tell you why I loved it, because I was one of those kids when I was young. Back in the day, I even had a truant officer. Not many people know that about me. Of course, I don't think they have truant officers anymore. But I cut classes, school. You know, I pushed the envelope, quite frankly, and this was back in my high school days, and I was just bored to tears. So I had different kinds of baggage at that time, so I can relate better to students who are underserved, who have issues and all that kind of thing. So I discovered I loved that population, and there's a reason why, obviously. So over time, I became the achievement coordinator for students like that. How to motivate them, how to get them going, them semi-successful if I could. Now, as you know and I know, that doesn't work for everybody, but it worked for a lot of students. I'm very proud of that, actually, and that is part of my journey. And I think that really set me up for what I was to do many years later. Over time, I went and got my doctorate degree. And that was an interesting experience because at that time I was a little bit older than anybody else. I was like the grandma in the classroom. So, I tell women, go for it, girl. Don't be afraid of that. Live your dream and you will have challenges. And if you're the grandma in the classroom, so what? But I focused on the factor of racism in the public schools and how that transfers down to student achievement. So that was another interesting story all by itself. So after years, I did finally get to retire. And because I know.
You are not retired.
I know, that's in quotes. What can I say? But I've always had a passion for working with women. I mean, even when I was in the education field, I would talk to women. Summers off, I would work, nonprofits, talking with women, that kind of thing. But I never had the time during the year because I was so busy with my job. So now that I have left that, sort of, now I work exclusively with women if I can. Now, that's not to say I don't work with men, because yes, I do. So I'll make that clear. But most of them are women from various walks of life, different struggles, and we all have our story, and every woman is different.
Correct.
So I work with them. I listen to them. I try to strategize with them, okay, in their field of work. This is what you need to do and to get ahead. Women need to be promoted, and they have lots of talents, and they need to understand they can do this. But in our country, in our culture, women were socialized so much differently than boys.
Agree. Yes.
Growing up. And it's never the woman's fault that she maybe feels insecure or she doesn't want to make waves at the office. That's how we were trained growing up from our birth families and our schools and so on. So that can be an issue for a lot of women, that they need to find that they do have talents, they do have passions, and they can do this.
Correct.
It's a whole mindset thing. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm working with women individually, also in small groups, getting involved in the area that I'm in now because I'm new to this area. I live somewhere else. Pardon me?
You new to consulting?
Yes. Well, no. Yes and no. I'm new to this area. So when you move to a new location, it takes a little bit of time to figure out who the players are.
As in, like, geographically, you're new to the area.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. Yes. Right. So it takes a little bit of time. So,
yes,
but I'm doing that now.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. Well, okay. Many of us do, right? So that's what I'm doing now. I have the time, first of all, to help women because I don't have another, job. So this is my passion, and I'm walking my path, and it's my journey.
All right. So the very interesting part about it is that you're coming at this from working and trying to help women for so many years and trying to help students for so many years. So you have so much experience in actually knowing how to do this.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. So, but like before that, you were actually working with in diversity and in inclusion. Please talk a little bit about that, because that is so amazing. Like how, because I think that's what pushed you into doing this as well. So yeah, tell us a couple of experiences from your days at diversity inclusion manager with the
American Association
of University Women.
Yes. By the way, if you're not familiar with that organization, every state has a unit there with branches underneath them. So yes. And well, all right. So I already had the background of working with diverse populations. That was a natural for me. And because obviously I'm Caucasian, and I did things a little bit differently in my life. And so I had some struggles there. But I'm going to say white privilege. Okay. So, that did help me. And I recognize it. And I, would love to think that any woman of color would have the same opportunities and chances and drive and opening doors that I did. But I know that's not true, sadly.
Sadly.
And so that is something that needs to change, and it's going to take a long time. So I had the passion for this. I had the research training for this, and I was a member of AAUW, the American Association of University Women. And so one thing led to another, and over my involvement with that group, I had various different positions on state board and so on, and it was just a natural. When that position opened up, I applied for it. Even though I'm Caucasian, and it would be, I think, really honestly, that it would have been better to have a woman of color, but as the case happens, is not many women of color want to get involved with certain organizations for a variety of reasons. So I was it. So I was very sensitive, and I still am sensitive to that issue. And I try to help where I can help, but it's going to take a long time to change this. It's a long time, but that doesn't mean we don't stop trying.
No, and every day we work towards it, because there's no reason to just stop trying if the possibility comes, so you always work for it, always
Yes.
continue to work for it.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's not just, so yes, there's white privilege. Yes, very aware of that. But at the same time, we need to work with everybody where they're at, and it's not just about equality; it's about equity. And
Yes.
the biggest issue that we're seeing in tech is a little bit, they're starting to get skewed again towards equity. So it's really making some progress. Not much.
Oh, good.
They're still massively
Well,
leaving tech,
right.
but they're at
Right.
least acknowledging the fact that if you give the same opportunity, doesn't mean that you're doing the same thing. Because if you give the same opportunity, some people, because they don't have the background necessary, you need to supplement that. So
Definitely.
equity comes in, not equality. So
Yes.
equality is important, but equity is actually
Yes.
the biggest motivator. So
Yes.
yeah. So all right. So
There's a lot of work to be done in that field. There really is.
So
Yeah.
what marked you in your previous role? Like in before women's management, like what was big? What marked you? What stood up?
Okay. Yes. We're going way back to my younger years, and I think what you mean by marked is maybe a personality or a role model. Or is that what you're
Yes,
talking about?
somebody
Okay.
that's something that stands out for you, that's triggered you into changing direction and going. Yeah.
And the name is Eleanor Roosevelt.
All right. Let's
As
see. Who is that?
Yeah. Do you know that name? Okay. Yeah. Um, as a young girl, she left a huge impression on me. I really admired her spunkiness. I admired that she did what she felt was right, no matter what the field was. I admired the fact that she worked for underprivileged children a lot, and adults. I just admire her, and quite frankly, I admire her, but not so much her husband. Okay, but anyway, she just stood out to me, and she really became my role model. And down in my basement where I live now, I have probably this huge poster of her on my wall. So she's still an influence in my life, And when I was again going into college, freshman in college, I was in Philadelphia. I'm from the East Coast
Okay.
originally. So I was in Philadelphia, and at that time, they had some of our college students who wanted to go into the inner city and work with students in like reading and math, those basic skills. Well, of course, my hand went right up, right? I mean, yeah, right here. Eleanor, that's Eleanor. She really believed in all that. So she was really the force that made me go in the direction that I ultimately went in.
Okay, that's a fantastic story, and because she is influential, but like not that many women attribute all of this to her. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, right.
it's good that somebody remembers her for like the amazing stuff that she did. So, but so we're going to keep going with we're staying on the same path, but I'd like to know, how would we bring more women into business of color, any, like all women? How are we going to bring more women into business?
That's a really good question, and that's a tricky question, and it's very complicated. Um, I think you need to have a trust factor first. Because I'm a person who likes people and builds on relationships. That's just kind of how I do it. So I think you need to have those conversations, and they have to be courageous conversations. But that doesn't really happen until after people trust each other to some degree. So once that is established, I think that there needs to be a lot more mentors, but there also needs to be sponsors, and they are different.
You want to talk a little bit between the difference between the two?
Yeah, well, simply put, a mentor is somebody who's going to really hold your hand through your job and your position and make sure you understand the skills and blah, blah, blah that goes with it. A sponsor, you may not even know them, but they are watching you, and they can actually promote you from the inside workings of the company. All right. You don't have to have that one-on-one relationship. And that's what happened to me. I had a sponsor who said nice things about me and really brought my name up. And, she'd be great for that. Let's try her, that kind of thing. But I really did not have that one-on-one relationship with that person. So I think there has to be both, in my opinion.
And you see, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
And you see the sponsors, you see the sponsors and the mentors as men or women, not necessarily just women, because you don't, correct, right?
Yep, correct.
To me, it's a massive issue having men involved in the change, because yes, we're all, feminists and fantastic, but if the men are not, subscribing to this, and if they don't understand what's going on with their daughters or with their wives at work or with their moms, or the conversation is never going to change. So the conversation needs to go there as well. So having men be active participants in what's happening in in the business world of women is vital for any sort of change.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean.
I agree. I totally agree. And, I do, believe it or not, is as outspoken as I can be. I actually have some men friends.
What a surprise.
Oh, boy. And luckily for me, and I'm really very, fortunate, is that these men in my life tell me how it is. And they give me a different perspective. But they understand mine as well. So you are absolutely correct. Yes.
We're going back to the workplace and this new movement last year for Me Too that came out, and how that affects, how do you see it affecting basically not just the workplace, but any sort of relationship?
It's huge. I think it's about time, quite frankly. And it's sad for all the women that have had to come out and tell their stories. I mean, they're horrific. Now, the situation in Michigan with Larry Nassar just about turns my stomach. Horrific. But Hollywood thing, and there's other places. This goes on even places that we don't even know about. And I do think it's time that women do need to stand up and say, hey, this is what happened to me. It's wrong, and so on. But these women and girls, because we have to include them, they're role models for the rest of us. And I think our society needs to know that, this has got to stop. This is wrong. We just can't do this anymore.
Right.
So I'm all for it. I think it's great. I mean, it sickens me, but it's it's time.
It's about letting women speak about what's happening, because as a victim, first of all, you're not believed, you're not encouraged to talk about it, and then you're victimized even more by those that are supposed to protect you. So this movement is fantastic. And what I'm seeing lately with the backlash against it, I mean, I really don't understand where it's coming from. I mean, I do understand where it's coming from, because men are kind of freaking out about what's happening. With massive stars like, oh my God, what's his name? From House of Cards. And,
there's so many massive stars that have been doing this forever.
Yeah, but now they're losing their jobs, and
Yes,
they're going to
it's not
jail,
right.
and
Right.
I'm not. I mean, it's good that it's happening, and I'm. It's not good that's happened,
Right. You're right.
but it's good that it's happening right now.
Right.
And if we can find that balance where we can respect each other as humans, I don't think there's going to be any issues in the workforce and any
Right.
sort of environment,
Right.
because you know that's what this is. Women finally saying, "I've had enough." And we're good. let's
Yeah, we are
let's
good.
let's start fresh.
Yeah.
Basically, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
So
Yes. And I think now I can't speak for all men, but some men are certainly threatened by this.
right, that's
Because,
that's been the backlash.
that fear factor, and it's good that this is coming out for the awareness, because there are a lot of women too that wouldn't even believe this was going on. But I can tell you from my personal experience, it's been going on for a long time, because it happened to me in my first job. All right, and this was back. All right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not the only one, because I've met other women who are middle aged and a little bit older that they remember how it was. And so we are very much excited that things are changing. Now, again, it's going to take time, but the awareness factor is huge.
It is, and not to say anything, but like it happens today. It's happened yesterday. It's happening every day. So
Mhm.
it didn't stop.
No,
You know,
no,
it didn't stop, and it doesn't matter, who you are. You'd still, I mean, as a woman, you learn to deal with that. You learn to
yes.
navigate that, and we shouldn't have to learn how to protect ourselves from our bosses, and
Mhm.
physically and sexually protect ourselves from our bosses.
Yes,
So
yes,
if we can keep it professional at work, it's,
yes,
it's a good,
yes.
it's like,
That's a wonderful thing.
yes, let's
you
stay
know,
there.
yeah. Oh, for sure, for sure. So I think it's very timely, and I'm glad to see it, because I think that women need to not be silent anymore. But see, again, our society teaches girls not to make waves.
Yes.
Essentially, suck it up.
Yeah.
You know, and that's wrong. Totally wrong.
What is it? Grin and bear it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Great.
There is a phrase from my background. Holy smokes. Where did that come from? Thanks for that memory.
Grin and bear it.
Wow. Yeah.
We
Grin
can't
and
do that
bear.
anymore. All right. On a lighter note. On a lighter
Okay.
note.
Okay, good. All right.
So let's talk about what made you switch from education to consulting. So because you didn't actually switch, you stayed with kind of
Yeah.
consulting both,
Just a
but
little bit differently.
it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, again, for me, I know my passions, right? And I'm very passionate about a few things, which we probably won't go into, but I knew I was passionate about women's causes, and I knew I had to be in that. And with my other job, I don't know what you know about an administrator in a public school, but that job never
Much.
quits,
Yeah.
right? So time was a factor. I was also married. I also had children, raising children, and then that's a whole, work-life balance trick. And
Massive
so I
issue.
didn't have a lot. Yeah, oh, it is. And so I didn't have a lot of time to work with women in the other job. But now, see, I switched gears, sort of. Not entirely, but sort of. And now I have more time. So I recognize that. And quite frankly, none of us are getting any younger. So for me, it was like, okay, it's now or never. And you don't know me well enough, but I have enough grit that I can do this.
No, I can tell. From our first conversation on the phone, I'm like, yes.
So so if I can help even one woman succeed in their field, I would be massively happy. So that's happened. So I'm massively happy. More, yes, okay.
Okay, so what was your aha moment about women's manage? Like, what was like, oh, yes, that's why. Like, yes, that's the motivation.
Okay, yeah.
That made you
And this,
started.
well, see, now the other part of me is that I'm spiritual. All right. So for me, it's an intuitive feeling. It is, I know when I'm someplace I shouldn't be, and I know I'm in the right spot when I'm there. And I feel, because as I said earlier, life for me is a journey. I think that you learn lessons along that way, and you kind of focus on your path, whatever your path is. And we all have paths. And so it felt good to me. It felt right. And so I said, okay, let's run with this. Let's do what you can do, whatever that is. I was very trusting in my spiritual beliefs. And I said, okay, let's see where this goes. And so that was the aha, because it felt right. And I knew this is what I was supposed to do at this point in my life.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because if that's the most important thing in business, in starting your own business in life, is doing what you are drawn to, doing what feels right to you, and finding that joy. It's because you're doing what's right and what you're drawn to, you're innately happy. It's already there. So instead of searching for
It's a good feeling.
happiness,
Yeah.
instead of like looking for happiness, pursuing happiness, you pursue something that draws you, and happiness kind of just comes with. I don't know.
Definitely.
Just, to me, it's like,
It does, because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
yes,
You know.
and it's a lot more than
All right.
just
Are you
being.
there? I think
I'm here. Can you hear
okay.
me?
I lost you there for a second.
That's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
It
We're
happens.
good.
It's okay. It's a different. We're different bandwidths.
Right.
But like,
Okay.
if you do what you love to do, you get up in the morning with a different passion. There's no Monday morning dread. There's no worry about anything, because everything is happening how it's supposed to be happening, and
That's right.
it's.
That's right.
So to me, that's always been important. Like, if I resonate with something, I will do that, and I know it's going to be fantastic. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because
Good.
I know this is totally resonating with me and with every woman that I speak with. So
Yes.
I'm passionate about doing this every day.
Yes, yes, yes. And I applaud you for what you're doing, because we
Thank
have
you.
to get our voices known and get it out there and awareness, and say, hey, look, lady, you're not by yourself. We're
Right.
here to help you, network, support you. We're going to do it.
Building a community, seeing that there's other women like you going through what you're going through, experiencing what you've experienced. And like you were talking about earlier, sponsoring or mentoring, the younger generation, or, even not necessarily just the younger generation, just women that have never had any sort of support before, because
Right.
you can be, 6 years old and you never have had any sort of support. So it doesn't matter how old you are, if you can find your tribe, basically, and if you can, so my tribe is women. So
Yes, yes, yes. I hear you on that one. Yeah, and for the younger women that just starting their work career, I think they have to realize that you do change over time, and your tribe does change as you change, and so nothing stays the same. It's always in flux. It always changes.
So
And that's good.
What was that saying about change is the only constant? I don't know who said that, but that change is the only constant. So there's nothing constant. Change is the only constant. So yeah,
Right.
especially, I mean, and especially in our time, things are moving so quickly with technology, and with, with new generations bringing in a whole new awareness and new zeitgeist and that changes everything else. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm loving the times we're living in. Hopefully they'll
Yeah.
get even
It's
better.
very exciting. It's very exciting.
All
Yeah.
right. So what do you think that women bring to the business world?
Oh, they bring so much. My goodness. I mean, if you've done any readings on the differences between men and women, you know that we think entirely differently. And we have skills that we can bring to the table, which is really important. And men need to understand that. We think differently. We're much better, with networking and collaboration than they are, for instance. So we bring a lot of those skills. And the whole board, the table needs to understand that we are individuals and we have strengths too. And we're going to start speaking our mind and we're going to use these because they are our strengths. I was talking to a woman a couple days ago, and she's a younger woman and she's speaking her mind in her workplace. And so when she's brought in to the table, she says what she thinks. And this is a woman probably, I don't know, 25 maybe. But she made the comment to me because obviously I'm older. And she said, but the older women, they don't say anything.
Right.
They just sit there like they have nothing to say. And she had trouble understanding that. So we had a conversation about why that might be. But yes, women bring a lot to the table. And the age doesn't really matter. But we have the mindsets that, yes, we have to speak up.
Yeah.
And I think, I was talking, I digress just a little bit here.
No,
because
please do.
I thought, I over my tenure, I would have liked to have thought that when younger women coming into the workplace now, 20s, early 30s, I would have liked to have thought that, a lot of things had changed for women. We didn't have to put up with a lot of the crap that we always have. The answer.
Good luck with that. Good luck with that.
Yeah, I was, I now live in a very urban area. So I thought, okay, let's just see the answers. And they would say, generally across the board, things haven't changed a whole lot. And these are women in their 20s and 30s. And I'm thinking, really?
In the business world, they have not. In the outside world, like basically like private world, yes, we're more outspoken and yes, all of those things and more courageous, I guess. But in the business world, because the status quo is a status quo and it takes so long to change. I mean, it takes a whole generation to change. So it might be another 10 years before we see any sort of massive change where even older women are actually more encouraged to speak out. Because they'll see that it's more acceptable. They'll see that it's, not punished because I think they're not speaking out because of fear of being punished, fear of
retaliation is huge.
So
huge. I have to laugh. You just said something, 10 years as being a generation. Actually, it's 20 years.
20 years, yes. But it's been about 10 years since this massive change has kind of started. So that's what I was like, 20 years.
I'll go with that.
We're kind of making some progress. I don't feel like this is quite the beginning.
No, it isn't. And you're right.
From that point of view, it feels like maybe another 10 years. We'll see. Hopefully.
Hopefully. In the meantime, I got a lot of work to do.
I know. Yes, you do. So, but we'll talk about that. So what drives you? Who's your motivation? And I know we talked a little bit about Eleanor Roosevelt.
Wow. Okay. What drives me? There have been, as you could guess, many struggles that I've had to survive and which I've done, and I'm resilient and so on. But I think that I learned probably 30 years ago, maybe more, I have to rely on the strength of who I am. So it's an internal thing that may be part genetic. I come from some outspoken people in my blood work here, but
we couldn't figure that one out.
But I'm, and as I said, we all change over time, and that's the natural way things should go. So my inner voice has gotten stronger. And I recognize conflict when I see it, and believe it or not, there are people who really don't like me, But oh well.
Life is not worth living without making a few enemies. So that's good.
Yes. That's good. I'm going to keep it up too. I'm not going to change that. But anyway, I think it's my internal voice, my spirit, if you will, what I believe to be true. Because in my journey, I don't mean anything negative about this, but in my journey, people that I thought were close to me and would be supportive of me were not. So I've had to turn inwards to find who I am as a person, my core values, etc. So that's what gets me through, really.
Your strength gets you through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
But I think looking at your accomplishments, that should boost your ego a little bit. It's not a lot.
Well, well, that's the other thing, right? I was, as women, and especially in my birth family, you were never taught to brag or feel, voice your accomplishments. Oh, no, 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 no. So I really don't talk a lot about those kinds of things because that's part of the way I was raised. But I know it. See, I know where my accomplishments are, so I'm okay.
All right. So talk to us a little bit about why do you do Women's Manage, and like what are you doing for women actually with Women's Manage?
Yes, good question. As I said, I build relationships and trust. I mean, for me, that's where that starts. And it takes time, as we all know. But what I do is I've seen it, and many other women have seen it also, that women typically don't get those promotions. They don't get the choice assignments. They don't make more money because of that. I've seen that, and throughout my entire life. So with Women's Manage, I try. See, here's the teaching thing again.
Mm-hmm.
I teach them skills. Okay, it's not about just going to work 9 to 5 and doing your job.
No, it's not.
And that's how the school systems work, right? So all of us, including men, have been taught that way, that you work hard and you get the rewards. Well, that doesn't work for women. So you have to know the strategies, the skills, you have to do as an individual to get those promotions, to advance in your career. So that's what I do. I also work with some women on salary negotiation, which is a whole other sticky wicket, I'll tell you right now.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So it's right now for women.
Okay, I lost you a little bit there, but
yeah, I thought we kind of got out of that. Yeah, okay.
But that's okay. So can we talk a little about the differences between women in business and men in business? So a businessman and a businesswoman. We kind of know what the strengths are, but we're generalizing. So you want to talk a little bit about what you've seen in your experience as the difference between how men do business and how women do business. And I think we touched on those a little bit.
Yeah.
But
and there's a lot of research out there that you can always read and get more. But on
from
a
your
more
perspective,
personal,
yes,
on a personal level, what I've seen, and again, this is part of my experience,
yes,
is that women are really looking at other women as competitors. I'm going to tell you, when I got my doctorate and I was the grandma, I'm going to tell you, women were my worst enemy because they said, well, what are you doing that for? Shouldn't you be home taking care of your family? Blah, blah, blah. Right? So there was no support there. And oddly enough, during that particular period of time, men knew enough to keep their mouths shut. They said nothing to me about that. It was the women who really became my worst enemies. So the naysayers, but it was pretty amazing. And I see that also in the workforce. Women are threatened by other women, and that should not be the case.
Ever.
Women need to help. Yes, women need to help and network and support other women. Men do it all the time.
Yes.
Whether it's on the golf course, using a stereotype.
Yeah. No, it's very valid in Houston where I'm at.
Okay. Well, yeah, not so much where I am, but that's okay. But it's the networking. And then women need to recognize that they're beating up on their own sex and men are advancing. So you need to be aware of that. And then there's another question. How do you infiltrate that, the boys? How do you do that? And there are, that's again, individual. And so there are things you can do. I typically talk to some women about that because that's their issue. But women have to understand they cannot be, after the other women in the office.
I
That
agree.
just doesn't work.
It doesn't work because we're a sisterhood, and we got taught that divide and conquer thing. So basically, be against each other, fight amongst yourselves, and the men will win. So
Yep,
that needs to stop.
definitely.
We're a sisterhood. We're supposed to help each other. We should have our own backs, not against men,
Oh, no, no.
by no stretch of the imagination, but at the same time, we need to be able to be supportive of each other without feeling that we're sacrificing ourselves.
Definitely.
Showing any sort of leadership skills, you're supporting and encouraging the people on your team. If we're a sisterhood, we should be supportive and encouraging of the women next to us, our sisters. So
Right,
like you
right.
said, men do that. Men know how to do
Oh,
that very well. So let's take a page from their workbook and, apply it, because it applies to us too. We're in business too. And,
yes,
we're
yes.
doing business differently. We're more networking, like you were talking about, more, not necessarily, but more spiritual about it, more, we're making decisions based on our drives and our basing our gut instincts
Yeah.
sometimes as
Oh, yeah.
well.
Definitely, definitely.
We talk numbers too, but at the same time, for us, a business relationship is more than just numbers. It's never just numbers.
Mhm.
So we
No,
do business
right.
differently. And I'm
Yes.
seeing that the relationships are longer. Like the clients, relationships are longer because of that. Because
Hmm.
we build
Hmm.
relationships. So
That's so. Everything's about relationships.
absolutely, and it's easier
Yeah.
for us somehow.
Mhm.
I mean, I shouldn't do that. I'm stereotyping, but men are very good at this as well. But this is one of our strengths, and we should
It is.
really focus on that. All right, so, whew, massive
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah. No kidding. I'm getting like, wow.
All right, so let's go super personal right now.
Okay.
Yes. All right,
All
it's
right.
nothing that big. It's like, what's your favorite book? Like, what do you like to read? Or what book you've gifted the most? What book marked you the most? Like, talk to me a book that's important to you.
Oh, wow. There's so many. See, I'm a
Yeah.
reader.
Good.
That's this is. I'm also. I'll tell you right now. I'm a medieval history buff. And
Nice.
way back in the day, that was my undergrad degree was in
Wow.
medieval history and early American history. So I just gravitate to some of those. And because I read, I guess you would call professional books,
Mm-hmm.
I get away from them and read my history books because it just as a nice break.
But
In
they're
my
still leadership books if you think about it. If the
Oh,
history
well,
books.
yeah. Okay. And then, of course, on TV now, they have all these amazing history, mini series things going on. I just get sucked right into those, the Templar. Oh, yeah. It's just crazy. Tape them and I rewatch them. And anyway, I'm just crazy about that. But, okay, I digress again.
No.
Um, Back to professional books. I've
Not
also,
professional, just any book that marked
oh,
you. Like,
marks me. Oh, there's so many. I in my area, I'm also a lean in circle leader.
nice.
Uh, yeah, and I just recently, I haven't read it yet, is the Option B book by
Okay.
Sandberg. I read her other books, and I'm very curious about the progression of things. But that is going to be my next read. The other books are strictly history books, and because I have to have that change up.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for my mental health and it gives me a different view on things. So that's I would guess I would have to say that right now,
Awesome.
sort of.
No, that's great. Those are great, two great books, and Sheryl Sandberg, yeah, kind of a superstar.
Yes,
So,
she is,
for good
definitely.
reason, for very good
Yeah,
reason, for very many reasons.
yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right. So, what is a struggle that you've had that kind of puts you on the path to where you're at right now?
I think I said this, maybe I didn't. I said this about life for me is a journey. My entire life to this point has been a struggle. Even though I'm Caucasian, but I'm a female
Yeah.
Caucasian. And so there have been some issues there. And, I said I had a husband. I'm now a widow. My
Sorry to
kids
hear
are
that.
off on their own. There's struggles there. Back in my early days, having a truant officer, for heaven's sakes, there's a struggle there. So there have been many struggles, but I look at those struggles as my life lessons. I had to learn those. I had to learn to be resilient. I had to learn to count on myself because, quite frankly, most of those I was alone. You know, I didn't have the support, and nor did anybody really want to listen to me. So my whole journey has been a struggle, but it's put me in a very good place right now. So that's how I view that whole thing.
That's awesome. That's how you should view it. Otherwise there's no motivation to get up in the morning. There's got to
Yeah.
be a lesson, and it's not just what you. Every one of us has struggles to
Mm-hmm.
varying degrees, but it affects us all to
Mm-hmm.
varying degrees.
Yes. Right. Right. Right.
Some people don't know how to get up and to go past them.
No.
So, but life is always going to hit you. Life is always going to come at you, and doesn't matter what you do, it's never going to be easy for anybody. So the biggest lesson is getting up, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps.
Yes.
That's what it's called.
Very definitely. Very definitely. And not to give in. And as you
Never.
said, many men and women have major issues with that because of life lessons. And it's difficult. It's difficult.
Some
So,
lessons
but
are
yes,
some lessons are tougher to accept and
yes, they are.
to get past, but
Yes,
again, resiliency comes in, and that's a massive factor in personal life and in your business, in the business world.
definitely.
So
And if you don't have it in your personal life, it affects everything else.
I agree. I
Mhm.
agree. All right, so give us something that people will be surprised to know about you.
Well, one is a truant officer story. I
That
mean,
is that is that's just like epic. Hold on. I've lost you a little bit, but that's epic.
the other one. Now, I'm obviously older, and I enjoy my life, and
Good.
I think I'm pretty physical actually. But the other thing that would absolutely shock somebody who didn't know me at all, I think, is that I love to rappel off cliffs.
Really, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Love it, love it, love it. And this is something that I really started doing probably within the last 10 years. But I love hanging off of cliffs on ropes. Go figure, right?
That is amazing.
Yeah. So that would be kind of fun.
That is fun. All right, so like I'm trying to like get to the like wrapping it up. If you
Okay.
were to put up a billboard, yeah, where
There's so
would you,
many.
yes, pick one, and where would you put it? What would you say on it, and where would you put it?
Okay, I got to go with the saying, "You owe me 21 cents."
Okay, we need a background on that one. Like,
Okay, well, it's equal pay. All right,
okay,
I'm very involved in my state in equal pay. I'm a big part of the lobby every year in Lansing, which is our capital,
yes, ma'am.
and making people aware. And there are so many people, women and men, who don't even think it exists. So that would be what is on the billboard, and where I would put it is right on the steps of my capital.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. All right, so that kind of wraps it up for me because I can't like that you can't possibly go above that one. I'm sorry. There's just
Yeah.
it's amazing. But this is Dr. Larsen, so Dr. Penny Larsen, and for anybody that's been tuned in so far, we'll have all her contact information. But find her at womenmanage.com. Let's make sure womenmanage.com, and Dr. Larsen will talk to you about how to get a pay increase in your job, how to stand up for yourself at work, how to, grow as a woman in business, how to develop and how to look for mentors, how to find your voice as a woman in business. So get in touch with her as soon as you can. And, and
I'm very approachable. So,
as
that's
good. As y'all can see, she's very approachable. So Dr. Larsen, is there something that I didn't ask that I need to ask that we need to know?
You have to ask me another question.
No, I'm not. I'm just like, am I missing? Did I miss anything that?
Are you missing anything? I don't think so. It's always about the conversation. And relationships, and we can talk later.
We're definitely going to talk later. But to everybody that's been tuning in, thank you so much for staying with us. And we're the Business Magazine for Women. We're very grateful to have Dr. Larsen with us on our first video podcast. And this is going to be available as an audio recording as well. And we're going to make sure that everybody can reach Dr. Larsen through our website or directly to her website, womenmanage.com, or at the Business Magazine for Women. And that's it for us today. We're going to sign off, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you, Dr. Larsen. Bye.
Bye.
The lid off. You put your money where.
Hey, everybody, and thank you again for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed it and learned a lot. Just to remind you that for a price of coffee, you can now hear your name on our podcast. So go to patreon.com/Wonder Woman Podcast and make your pledge. The music for our podcast is graciously provided by our most awesome Wonder Woman, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. To get your free download, go to cbemusic.com. That is cbemusic.com. One more thing before we go. We'll be off next week, the week of June 21st, as we're putting the finishing touches on our summer issue, which we cannot wait to share with you. In the meantime, check out our other podcast and get caught up with the previous issues of our magazine at thebusinessmagazineforwomen.com. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.